Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is all about the new Cavalex TEA. Now, as always, I'm not going to do a box opening. It did come in a box and I've taken it out. So this is the new wagon. It's very nice. It's actually got a little bit more weight to it, so I'm guessing that this tank is actually more substantial than what it is on perhaps some of the rival wagons, shall we say. So that's nice. Underneath, everything's depicted as you would expect, which is all good. Converting it to either EM or P4, that is quite simple. You just change the wheel sets. One thing I will say is that the brake gear is obviously set up for 16.5. So in order, if you do rewheel it to EM or P4, you will need to do something with the brake gear just to enlarge it. So what I need to do at some point is cut that off and just extend the brake blocks over so as they meet the new positions. But it doesn't impede fitting the wheels and actually getting the thing running. So you can just rewheel it and put it on the track, and if you're not too worried about that, then that's not going to be a problem. Not like some models where the brakes actually fail the wheels. But like I said, to actually get it right, there is a little bit of work there to do, but not major. Other than that, it is a really nice wagon. As I say, there is a little bit of bulk to it as well, which is good. So today what I'm going to do is I actually want to weather them a little bit. Now, I've sort of like gone away from my traditional sort of like weathering, if you like, or not so much that, but I've actually looked at pictures of these, and the one I found, they're actually really clean. This picture I've got was taken in 1992, and that they were in remarkably clean condition, which is quite surprising really. So it's obviously, when I come to weathering it, it's not a hard weathering. I did have a little practice yesterday on a Bachmann TEA, and that is my efforts, which I don't think it looks too bad, but even that would be slightly heavier weathered than the picture. But I think this is a sort of, I'm going to almost go for how this looks. It might be a little bit over weathered, but at least you can see there is weathering on there. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that. And that's all done with oil paints. So what I'm going to be using first off is I've got my Winsor & Newton oil paint on my piece of cardboard. So literally this has been on here for about 24 hours. So I'm just going to take the tiniest amount, put that into the thinners. So what I've got here is kind of probably good 70% thinners, and probably, well, as you can see, it's almost water. But for the first coat, that's all I really need, because like I said, I'm not trying to get it all on there and very hard. Okay, so there we are. This is the same wagon that we started with about 24 hours later. So what I did, I initially let that first coat sort of go for about 6-7 hours just to sort of tack off a little bit. So it's not totally dry, but it is sort of it's not as, you can work on it without too many problems, shall we say. And then what I did, I went through with a brush and I just sort of blended that whole thing in. So if there was any sort of like brush marks in it or anything that was kind of needed to come out, is what I did. So I've ended up sort of with a, as you can see, just sort of like a really sort of light tone throughout the whole wagon. And then once I've done that, I then added the thicker black oil sort of spillage from some sort of the filling caps, if you like, down the tank, and then I left that a while and just sort of give that a bit of a reblend. So this is the cleaner side, as they were. These wagons didn't get at all dirty. I've seen pictures of them sort of 92, and yeah, whilst they might have looked a bit like this would have been a heavily weathered one for that time. So even some of them didn't even have any oil spillage at all. So I don't quite know what they were conveying. It's possible that some of them were being used for aviation. I don't know, but that might explain why they were cleaner, or they were just looked after. So that's that side. The other side is slightly heavier weathered. This side is, say, just slightly heavier weathered. Nothing hugely different, but just there is obviously a little bit of difference, and there's a little tiny bit of rum from underneath the catwalk up there as well, just to sort of change it around a bit. So yeah, this side is sort of, I would have said, heavily weathered, even though you don't look it, that is heavily weathered. Just to do a comparison between this and an out of the box one, that is one that's just come straight out of the box, and opposed to the one that I've weathered. So you can see there is quite a lot of difference there, even be it that when you look at the wagon on its own, it doesn't really look like I've done much to it. So I think that's a good comparison between the two. And then if we look at the initial Bachmann one I did, just to sort of get my eye in, if you like, as we can see, the Bachmann one is slightly heavily weathered, but not massively. And the other thing to remember is that the Bachmann TTA tank was just slightly darker grey than what the Cavalex tank was. So that obviously will sort of shine through now, because though I've darkened both tanks down, they sort of, if they started darker, then that's obviously going to show through, but not to any degree. Pretty much where you've got a bit of heavier weathering there, there's not really a lot in it. There's a bit, but not as much. Yeah, so all said and done, I'm really pleased with that. There is a little bit more to do. I've got to just get the airbrush out. I want to get the airbrush out. I need to just sort of go through, do some under frame grime, and just sort of bits and pieces under there, just to sort of like track grime, etc., and probably do a bit of chalk on the bogies, just to sort of change them up a bit as well, just to blend the rest of the wagon in. But as I said, they didn't really get that dirty, so you've got to be a bit careful. But what I'll do is I'll wait until I've got some more, and then I'll sort of get the airbrush out and do them en masse, as opposed to getting the airbrush out just for one. I've also done the ends. They're probably slightly heavier weathered again, but they would have got a bit more dirty there, so I wasn't too fussed about that. So yeah, a nice wagon. So what you got is you got this here, which is basically the Bachmann tanks. You've got this tank here, which I believe that I bought it quite some time ago. I think that come from a company called Grimy Times. I'm not totally sure. That was originally black, and then someone had said in the comments about, you know, tanks like that wouldn't normally be black because of the obviously the sun would heat them up quicker. So I've changed it back to sort of the grey, and then I've sort of weathered it out a little bit. All the rest of the bit, apart from with the exception of this piece here, all the rest of the bits you see are all from a company called Goodwood Scenics. So the pump set there, I do believe that pump, you buy them sort of like as a kit of 3, but obviously 3 wasn't going to work here, so I've just kept it to the 1. I've also modified that slightly to actually fit my application. Originally this shaft is much longer, and the pipe that goes off into my tank doesn't look like that, but that's just bits and pieces that I've just modified it to sort of suit that application. Going back to it, yeah, I think that if you're interested in that, they are really nice actually. They are in the Fort William, so it does the Fort William set, which is like an oil intake point, and that is part of the Fort William set. But I also believe that they're quite hard to get hold of. I think they only manufacture them in small batches, so it's kind of like potluck as to whether or not it's actually available when you go for it. I've had to wait quite some time to get that, but it does look really nice. So I've weathered it up slightly as well. I've just put sort of like a light wash over it just to sort of like blend it to the surroundings, given us that the rest of it is quite dirty. But this piece of pipe here, that's all from Goodwood Scenics. The tap's from Goodwood Scenics. The ends, the valve, that needs a tap on it, which I've got, but I'm obviously not going to put that onto the very last knockings, because otherwise it's the sort of thing that gets broken. Again, this pipe here is exactly the same as, so that's just a shorter piece of it. This is a longer piece. The uprights, they're from Goodwood Scenics as well, and the same for this side. And I do believe these steps were part of their range, so I think they're part of the depot range. So yeah, I think it looks really good. And this is quite universal, this pipe. He sells like everything separate, so you can get like a joint, an end, or a valve, etc., and so on and so forth. And it does like you can get the bends, so you can go sort of down into the ground. It is quite a nice range. It does work out relatively expensive by the time you sort of added a few of these and a few of them, but the end result is really nice. And you can obviously, as you can see, you can make it look rather nice. So going back to what I want to do here, I'm basically just going to add a little tiny bit more rust to this, and maybe a little bit of rust on these Bachmann tanks. Now, in reality, this is probably maybe slightly over weathered. I'm not totally sure. You probably wouldn't see quite as much spillage, although, you know, in depots there are sort of like lots of spillage and bits and pieces. But what I was trying to do was not over accentuate the situation, but I wanted it to be more noticeable that obviously there was stuff going on here. So that's why, if it is a little bit more dirty than what it would be under normal circumstances, because I'm trying to make it sort of like a point of it. But I don't think it's that bad. I've seriously weathered down the pipe work, but I've also took it back a bit as well, so it's not absolutely ridiculously filthy. You can still see, you know, the original colour bleeding through and bits and pieces. I'm just going to do a little bit more, so I'm going to add a little tiny bit more rust to this tank. But I'm not really going to do much more than that, because you can soon overdo these things more so than what it already is overdone, and then that tends to spoil it. I've added a little bit of rust to each of the, like where the clamp, I felt that the pipe work itself might not rust, but you possibly get a little bit of rust off of like where the two metals meet. So I've just added a little tiny bit there, done the same over that side. Again, just to sort of highlight it, just to give it the eye something to look at. Okay, so all that leaves now is to do the wagon exchange. So we're going to take out the two Bachmann TEAs, and I'm going to bring in one of the new Cavalex TEAs.